2.
Welcome to Cabomil News and Community Update in English. Today is May 23rd, and you are listening to Corey Riggs along with Claudia Velo. Claudia, how's it going today? It was your birthday last week.
Yes, it was. It was, and it was.
And I was such
a fun celebration.
I was such a bad co-host that I did not realize. So I apologize about that. So in front of everyone, I want to wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been great.
And I heard you had a great dinner in Todos Santos. And
I did. I went to Doom, which is like one of my top 3 favorite places in the area. And it was a truly memorable dinner. Aurélien is an amazing chef. And yes, it was. And the place is beautiful. But everybody, if you have not been to Doom, you really should, because it's an amazing place.
I need to go check it out. Everyone that I know just loves it. So I need to go check it out. I think maybe I'll do it this weekend.
I will. It's a good idea.
If I can get in, because I know it's hard to get in. It's not easy to get in.
You have to make reservations. Make sure you make reservations. The day lunch menu is great, and it's the same menu basically all the time. If you go for dinner, and that's the great thing about Doom, Aurélien changes the menu every week, and he uses 80% of everything that he uses is locally sourced. Yeah. And you can go every week, and it's never the same thing, and it's always incredible. So yeah, it's great.
Well, we have a great show today. We have Isabelle Gagnon again to talk to us about our resident health expert. So we're gonna get into it with her. But we have lots of news. There's lots of craziness happening all around the world, and every day you think something could happen, and it can't get. I don't want to say worse. It can't get stranger, and then it does. And it just keeps getting stranger. And the things they call conspiracy theories is now, they're not conspiracy theories. And we'll talk about that in a second as well. But why don't we start with some news, some local news? What's going on here?
Well, the big news was the big shake, which wasn't that big, actually. Yes. But there was an earthquake that was registered by Mexico's National Seismological System. And it was a 4.3. Which is considered a moderate shake, and it didn't last very long. However, it's interesting that the epicenter was right off 19 kilometers off Palo Escopeta. So, it was
That's right off San Jose, right? That's very close to San Jose.
Right, okay. North of San Jose. Wow. A lot of people did feel it. And then a couple days later, on Thursday, there were posts saying that there was another earthquake. It's actually a replica, not a proper earthquake, because it was lower in intensity. It was possibly a 3. It was so low that the seismology, I don't know, the device that measures earthquakes in La Paz did not register it. However, there is a weather station run by METMEX that did register it, and that is close to San Jose, and that's 3 point. It was in magnitude 3, but it's considered a replica. So
like a replica is an aftershock.
An aftershock.
Oh, okay.
And usually they're lower in intensity, and this was the case. But of course, everybody started to really get worried and concerned, and what's happening, and But that's the official announcement.
Well, Charlie woke me up. I did not get woken up by the earthquake, but he woke me up. It scared him. So.
Oh. Did
so
you
feel the
replica though?
I didn't. I didn't feel anything. Yeah.
I didn't feel either one of them. So.
I did. My bed was shaking. Shook very hard, and that didn't last very long. But it woke me up. Yeah, but I'm in San Jose. I'm in San Jose.
Closer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Good.
There was an earthquake back in the 90s that was registered that did last a little while. But that was really the only one. I mean, there's been small ones that the epicenter is underwater in the Sea of Cortez and out on the Pacific, but nothing that was actually with an epicenter on land in this area in quite a long time. So that was a big news. And then the rest of the news, the other news item that is relevant and of local interest is the fact that the CFE, the electric power company, we started to have some blackouts last week, the week before, and there was this idea of what's happening. Isn't there enough power being produced? And we all know that we aren't producing enough power here in the state. There was an approved energy plant to run with natural gas and alternative fuels. And last week, when the bids that were approved were published, this plant did not appear. It was not part of the published approved bids. So apparently, the plant has been canceled, and now the local Congress, the state Congress, not the local Congress, but the state Congress needs to go back to the Federation and ask for this plant to be approved, because there is no question that we need to be producing more energy, and it needs to be produced in a cleaner way than it is currently being produced.
No, absolutely. With all the hotels and new condos going in everywhere, there's construction right now, and already there's drain on the power grid. So we definitely need that, and it needs to be clean. Yeah. And that's something that definitely needs to happen. Well, we're actually gonna get in with Isabelle in a couple minutes, because we're gonna be talking about immunity and what we need to do, and of course, it's gonna come back to the coronavirus, the biggest story in the world over the last year and a half. But what's so interesting, Claudia, I don't know if you saw, but the media has suddenly turned on Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci a little bit, which is so interesting because they've been the darlings for a while, and Bill Gates has been implicated, which I never quite understood, how the head of technology becomes the vaccine czar of the world. I never understood that. But anyway,
we missed that chapter.
We missed that chapter, how that happened. But he's been implicated with Epstein. He's been getting a divorce. And so that's so interesting. And the other weird thing is the CDC director just came out and actually admitted that it's possible that the coronavirus came from the Wuhan lab. And I think that is an earthquake. Because they were saying for a year and a half it came from a bat, and what if that is the case? It's going to be very interesting to see the political fallout of that. If you're following news in the United States, you've seen that. Dr. Fauci has been asked about that in a Senate hearing, because his NIH actually funded the research in the Wuhan lab, or he has been asked if he did. And it's very interesting to see, and it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen, because there's a lot of things changing, but it adds to the stress when we hear these things and what's happening and the lockdowns and all these things that are happening. And what's interesting about it is it lowers our immune system when we are stressed. And we're gonna talk to Isabelle about that. There was another gentleman that we've talked about this show before named Zach Bush. If you haven't ever looked him up, he's an incredible doctor out of Hawaii, and he talks a lot about immunity. And last April, he had something came out and said, if the virus runs its course like any other virus, in 2 years, it's going to be gone. And it is kind of looking like that right now, that he was right, that it's really lowering everywhere, that people aren't being reinfected, the infections are less severe, and it runs its course like any other virus. So there's a lot of interesting things, and a lot of these alternative people that talk about these things have been taken off of social media, which I also find, why? Why can't we just have an opinion that may be different? And I'm not going to talk about the vaccines because I don't want us to get banned, because people need to do what they want to do. But I think even saying the word vaccine, it'll be interesting to see what Facebook does with that as we're on Facebook Live right now. But let's move on and talk to Isabelle. Isabelle, what can we talk about immunity? Because Dr. Bush actually says we need to be hugging more, right?
It's interesting. Well, by the way, thank you very much, Korey and Claudia, for inviting me every month. I just love to be with you and share with your audience. Yes, let's talk about immunity. And it's interesting because I just posted that I'm going to host a 4-series event on recovery comes first. And the word recovery is now expanding even more with what I'm going to talk about, because we're coming out of a year or so of lockdown, and we need to recover from a lot of things, including stress, depressed immunity, COVID-15, which is weight gain, and so on. So maybe I can start by talking about the issue of vitamin D deficiency in the world. And this is something that is not talked about enough. I like the idea of prevention. And if we're going to boost our immunity, recover and boost, because we need to be prepared, because this isn't the last thing that we're going to have coming our way. There's going to be all kinds of flu. We need to be prepared. Very much like you don't go into exercising and start to drink water. You need your hydration way before you get into exercise. The same goes through with boosting our immunity, so we're prepared to defense. Because as we know, masks don't keep us from getting sick. It's really our best defense to our immunity. There is a protocol of nutrition of vitamins and minerals that are actually called the COVID stack that Claudia, I'm going to give you a link to. It comes from the Functional Medicine Institute. It came out last spring. And that's a great thing to follow as far as boosting immunity. And if you are concerned about still the virus, then it's a good thing to be on. Two of the top ones are, of course, vitamin D, and 70% at least of people up north are deficient, period. The issue with vitamin D and blood testing is, it's interesting, in countries like Sweden, they actually test their population for vitamin D deficiency twice a year. Here in America, you have to pay. And it's very complicated to ask a lab still today to get your levels. And it's very important for you to know your levels, because again, there's levels that are defined by the conventional medicine field. Prevention also always starts below that. So if you say to yourself, oh, look at this, I had my blood test and I'm just like borderline. If you're borderline, you're way too deficient from a preventative standpoint. Now,
Isabelle, can I ask you a question about this?
Yes.
It's so interesting. I was listening to a podcast, and I think it was Dr. Bush, but he was even saying it's how important vitamin D is, that there's no real flu season. What there is a lack of vitamin D season. And so when you think about when the flu season is, it's October through January. And that's when the sun is less intense, especially in the north. And you think about that, because COVID has not hit Los Cabos as hard as other places, or places like Florida, or places in Africa. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's just not. Now, is it because there's a lot more sun? It's just interesting to look at that and to understand that when people are inside, locked down, they're not getting sun. The vitamin D thing is a serious issue with your immune system.
It's the top. It's actually, and I just love the way you've quoted it, because it is that. You don't get flu or you don't catch a cold because the weather changes. It's because we don't have a strong immunity to ride the wave, the change of the weather, and also what's coming at us. Vitamin D actually, not only in northern countries, but if you have dark skin, and we also have dark skin here in Mexico. And interestingly enough, when we test some of the Mexican population, very deficient in vitamin D. And yet we're in the sun here. So we can't just assume because we live in the sun that we're not deficient. So again, very important. Zinc is also a mineral that most of the population is deficient. And that's one of the top minerals for boost immunity and against flu and cold and so on. And a little tip, if I may, on zinc, if you're going to feel a little scratch of any kind, like a scratchy throat or something coming on, if you take the double dose within 24 hours, most of the time it doesn't get any further. So what's the double dose? The maximum dose, which is on the bottle for zinc, is 30 milligram. You can safely take 60 in two different times during the day. And it is unbelievable how it really is efficient. And these are things that we need to actually continue to be on. Because supplement, as opposed to medication where you take a pill and you take a drug and it's effective right away, supplementation it's up to a month before you bring your levels up. So please, if you can retain anything from supplementation, which most of us need to, because the earth is not rich enough. Even if we eat healthy, we need to supplement. And so keep in mind, you can't just decide to take your mineral, your vitamin C when something happens. Make sure that you have your regular vitamins on a daily basis, because it takes up to a month to have your body level to a point where you're in a preventative bracket or mode. Does that make sense?
Yes. Isabelle, when you talk about zinc, do you mean the zinc lozenges? Is that what we're talking about?
There's two types. There's a zinc lozenges, which is actually very good, and especially if you have a throat issue, like to let it like melt in your throat. And you want to make sure that you get the natural ones as much as possible, because there's natural versions as opposed to the one with a lot of sugar. But you can also take it in capsules. So it's a really good thing to always have at home. These are like emergencies. Like it's really, same with vitamin C, 2 to 3 grams a day. It's very important to be on top of that. And you'll see this on the link I'm going to send you from the Functional Medicine Institute about the stack for prevention is green tea. So this is very inexpensive. And by the way, this is what I have right now. And green tea, you can get it in capsules, but 3 green teas a day is the protocol for efficacy to help you with boosting immunity. If you are caffeine sensitive, even though green tea is very low in caffeine, another tip is you put your water, you let it cool down, because green tea, you never scald the leaf, it's going to be bitter. You put your leaves in there and you remove the water and put more water. 80% of the caffeine will be removed if you just soak your leaves with a little bit of water, throw out the water, and then you can fill your cup with water.
So well, we're speaking with Isabelle Gagnon, our resident health expert, 96.3 FM. You can also follow us on Cabomil News on Facebook. And go ahead, Claudia. I cut you off. I'm making sure that everyone knows who we're talking with about our immunity. We are building our immunity now.
Right. And that was my next question. So, and that's something very important, because I know a lot of people who don't like green tea because they say it's too bitter. And you mentioned that if we scald the leaves, that's when it turns bitter. So could you make like sun tea with green tea and everybody can be happy and drink green tea all day?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because this is a big aha for everybody. Is like you have to put the water first. It's the only tea that you need to put the water first. Let it sit for a minute or so. Then you put the tea leaves or your tea bag. Doing sun tea is one of my favorite. I call it sun infused. So yes, you can actually, especially in Los Cabos here, put your tea leaves. And because it's going to be infused, so it's going to take a slow before it actually gets to its best, infusion strength. Then it's also one of the best ways to do your green tea, because it's not going to be scalded. It's going to slowly get its infused, strength that you're looking after. And by the way, all of the teas are very healing. So we're going to talk about stress and coffee and sleep. Actually, we're going to talk about sleep. Mm-hmm. And I really want to make sure we have time to talk about sleep, because it's my favorite subject right now.
We will definitely talk about it. We have a couple minutes left on this side of the break. But before we leave, tell us about, again, going back to vitamin D. Isn't it important that you take a supplement that also has vitamin K in it? Isn't that correct?
Yes, I like that. So vitamin D3 needs to be accompanied with K2. And you're going to hear a lot about K2 in the next few years, because it's going to become like the new D, because it's as important. And the reason is vitamin D, its role is to absorb the calcium. And K2 is the carrier that takes the calcium and carries it within the bones where it belongs and not in the blood. What they've noticed in the past few years is there a lot of calcification, because there's a lot of people that have over above amount of calcium in the blood, which we are at risk of heart disease when we have too much calcium in the blood. So K2 is extremely important as a carrier to take your calcium that D absorbs and then bring it in the bone where it belongs.
Just a question: how much vitamin D/K should you take a day, Isabelle?
Well, actually, if you are deficient, from the protocol from the Functional Medicine Institute is 5,000 IU for 6 months. And they now sell D3 with K2, so you only have to take one. And the people that are of dark skin are often on 10,000 IU because it's extremely hard for them to bring their levels up.
No, that's fascinating. That's good information. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back with Isabelle Gagnon. Listen to us on Facebook at Cabomil News, and you'll get some bonus material. We'll talk a little more on there, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Fascinating.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. And also, I didn't know that you have to take a supplement for a month before it actually does anything to you. It gets to the level.
Well, depends how deficient you are, but like omega-3 takes a month. The different supplements take less, but you have to consistently taking it to keep your levels up, as opposed to drugs where you can take a pill and it's instant. So there's a misconception. I have people that every time clients come to me, oh, I have these supplements and I only take it when I need to. And I go, how do you know? There's also the whole issue of rotation. It's very important also to rotate supplements. We can do another month. We can talk about the supplementation because it's very important.
Yeah. Well, It's interesting. My functional medicine doctor, what he tells me to take is every day vitamin D, vitamin and K. I have a vitamin B, B, right? And then I have the fish oil, so omega-3s, and magnesium and zinc. Those are the main things he says to take every day. And I also add a little bit of algae, so spirulina. So add that in, chlorella also. But there's so many interesting things that supposedly that does for you. I mean, I feel good. I don't know if it's mental or I actually feel good when I take these things. But it definitely feels like it's helped me a lot to get on that regimen. And
definitely in omega-3, everybody should take it all the time. There's 2 compounds to omega-3, and one compound is DHA, and the DHA is for brain health and for stress and anxiety. So actually they give higher amount of DHA omega-3 to kids that have ADHD and things like that. So and we don't produce, our body doesn't produce omega-3, and omega-3, the DHA is the only thing that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So it's very, very important to also always keep on omega-3.
Well, and a lot of the protein that we eat has omega-6s in it, which is a problem, and that's what causes inflammation, right? So even pollo, what is that? Chicken and beef and protein powder has a lot of omega-6 in it, and so I didn't realize that. And when you start to realize it, you're like, whoa. Yeah, this is, people think they're being healthy,
and they're not,
and they're causing inflammation in their body. When you have too much omega-6, it's a problem. That's why salmon is so important, anchovies, right? And
absolutely, and then that's why I say, you can no longer just get online and order your supplements and whatever is the trend of the day. Your supplement regimen should be as well as thought of as your diet. It's very important to consult with someone that knows, that can guide you, and it's good to have blood tests done, to make sure that you get what you need. But there's some basics, like what you mentioned, Korey, like our omega-3, the zinc, magnesium is vital as well, magnesium, vitamin D3. So these are things that we need to be on all the time.
And someone that knows what the clean supplements are, because there's also a difference when if something's organic or how it's made or what the ingredients are. And so it's very confusing. I hate that it's so confusing, because even someone like me who studies this, I get very confused. And so, you imagine we're talking here on Facebook Live. People are probably like, oh my gosh, another thing. It's just crazy, all the things. But it's definitely worth the time to get to know it, to understand it. And it's really not that complicated when we talk about some simple magnesium, zinc, vitamin B, vitamin D, and omega-3s. If you just really those top 5, depending on what's going on with your own blood, obviously, you need to check that out. But, so.
Well,
let's go back to the.
Let's go back. Let's go. We'll go back.
Buy omega-3 at Costco. Sorry, Costco.
We'll get back on. We'll get back on. We have a lot more time. All right.
Okay. Back in 3, 2.
Welcome back to Cabomil News and Community Update in English. Today is Sunday, May 23rd. I can't believe it's already May 23rd. Half the year is almost over, but we are back with Isabelle Gagnon, and we are talking about boosting immunity. This is Corey Riggs and Claudia Velo, 96.3 FM, or follow us on Cabomil News at Facebook Live. So, Isabelle, we had a lot of stuff over the break. We were talking about some supplements. So we're probably not going to repeat all of that on this segment, but go to Cabomil News on Facebook and you will get a lot of ideas about supplements that you can use and a lot of interesting research behind it. But Isabelle, I know we were going to talk about a little bit. Can you explain this? Dr. Bush said hug, and it's good for our immune system. Can maybe you talk about that a little bit? Because everyone's so afraid of hugging anybody right now.
Well, it's very challenging because you can actually die of lack of hugging. This is true. Like, you remember we talked about the babies that actually died. It doesn't happen very often, but died of lack of being held and being hugged. A hug is vital. The problem right now is the fear gets in the way, and it's not getting us better. It's like, okay, what is better? To take a chance and get a hug and feeling better, or the fear of like you're going to catch something? We have to really get over this thing, and we have to start to come out and hug each other. And if you still have the fear factor, just go with the ones that you feel more comfortable with. But we need to hug, and up to 6 hugs a day keeps you from
keeps the doctor away.
I'm all there.
But it also, what's been proven, and this is the crazy part, is the CDC and the WHO have said if you're non-symptomatic, asymptomatic, you're not passing this thing. And it's like no one is even listening. It's like, if you're not symptomatic, go hug someone. You can touch people. We are not dirty. It's actually good for our immune systems to shake hands because it exposes us to other things and it causes our immune system to work. And it's like, anyway, it's just crazy to me that it's already been said, asymptomatic, you're not passing this thing.
Actually, the problem is now is that you're going to. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The problem now is that we've become so sterile that we're going to have problems down the road with our prevention, our immunity, because we need to eat dirt. We need to have bugs, and with the sterilization of the antibacterial and everything, we have reasons to be less. I'm sorry, I've got something coming through that interrupts the flow. And so it's very important to get out there and get some bacteria on us. Like, I know it's conflicting people. I know people have fear, but there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And the more you live into your fear, the more you decrease your immunity, and the more you should be concerned what it is that you fear most.
Because that's what it causes it. It causes
exactly.
it.
It's very important to make sure that
anybody that has children,
yes,
they know if you don't let your children get used to playing in the dirt and putting things in their mouths, and the first time they get any kind of even little tiny bug, you'll have to take them to the hospital. So we have to strengthen our immune system, and we have to trust our immune system.
Yes.
If we're healthy, then we're healthy. We're not going to get sick and die because we're hugging somebody, you know.
We were born, we have to trust that we were born with innate immunity. We were born with health, and we have to get back to take our power back. We have to make sure that we do what's best for us, and we have to discern. Discernment is so important. And so we have to get out there. We have to breathe. It's very dangerous right now to walk outside and work out outside. I'm going to repeat this with your mask on. I hope that the whole Cabo is listening right now, and the CDC has confirmed, do not put masks on children when they're playing outside. It is very detrimental to their health. And so if it is for kids, it is for adults as well. Get your mask out.
And it's teaching kids that people are dirty. And I can't stand when I see kids playing outside with a mask on. That is, first of all, they don't get it. Second of all, that's crazy. So yes. I just hopefully people have stopped that. But the thing about fear is it was overdone for this whole epidemic, and it has caused it's actually being talked about a lot in the United States in the media right now about how much fear was given out. And people are now they're told they can take off their mask. They're not taking it off. And it's just it's something that's essentially, I heard fear could be false evidence appearing real. And that's our mind starts playing with us, and it starts. Anyway, everyone needs to make their own decision, obviously. We're not here to tell anybody what to do. But we have to take our power back. And we have to get out there and live life. Life is a risk. Everything we do is a risk. And none of us are getting out alive. Everyone has to, none of us are getting out alive. And it's much better to live than to be cowering in fear. And
the other thing that is very real that I'd like to talk about, then we need to talk about this pervasive. We're tired right now. There's a lot of my clients that come in and say, Isabelle, I'm working out, I'm eating well, I have my supplements, but I feel so tired. And I want you to realize we've been a year or so that there's no going out there like we used to. It's like before you hit the door, do I have my mask? Do I have this? Do I have that? So that's why it's important for us to now take back our own power and bring some normalcy to our lives, because that is an integral part of boosting our immunity. Which brings me to one of my favorite subjects right now. Let's talk about sleep, baby. There's a song. Let's talk about sleep, baby.
No, it's not about sleep. I know. We talk about something else.
Be careful. We're a family show here. We're a family show.
I thought I would make your auditors laugh a little bit. So I'm studying the latest science on sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, who's right now being on different podcasts. He's a brilliant scientist. He's part of the top people that are studying. And he's got a book out called Why We Sleep. It's a new science on the importance of sleeping and REM sleep and so on. And it could be a bit discouraging if some of you out there have insomnia, because the latest science is that sleep is now actually seen as more important than diet and exercise. Because if you don't sleep enough, you are at risk of a whole slew of issues, never mind the pandemic. From Alzheimer's to dementia, and even simple things like, let me give you examples. If you go to the gym and you haven't slept well and you're tired and you still go to the gym, which I admire you want to keep up with your exercise, you're going to be burning muscles, not fat. Lack of sleep is we retain fat. It creates a whole bunch of different issues. But also one of his comments, one of the findings is, if you go for a flu shot after a sleepless night, the efficacy is down by 50%. So the only thing I'm going to mention about the vaccine out there is, for you, the vaccine is important. You want to make sure that you have the lifestyle that go with that, because the vaccine is not just 100% for sure, and there's nothing else that I need to do about, and I can still continue with eat bad and not exercise and I'm protected. That's a fallacy. Let's get back to sleep and science. Very interesting. So what comes in the way of sleep? There's the light, there's temperature. I want to talk about temperature first, because that's very interesting, and I had an experience that confirmed it's 100%. our body needs to go down 2 to 3 degrees in order for us to fall asleep and stay asleep. Which means that our room needs to be cold enough. Now, here in Los Cabos, what we do is we delay as much as possible having the air on because it costs a lot. Well, you have to decide what costs more, lack of sleep or air conditioning.
Or CFE.
Or CFE. And
we have to have electricity.
Yeah, we have to have electricity, so that's a good thing.
That's a quiz for you too. So what is the ideal temperature optimally in our bedroom for us to be able to fall asleep and stay asleep?
Can I guess? What do you think it is?
22 Celsius.
What is that in Fahrenheit for our American speaking English system?
It's like what?
Audience.
High 60?
70? No, less than 70. Yeah.
High 60s. Yeah, that's what 60s, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cold.
Korey, what do you think?
I'm gonna say 72 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius.
65, 18 to 19 Celsius.
Oh my gosh.
Really cold.
Yes, and actually, it's better to have a blanket and socks if you have to, and then to be not to be too hot, because that really gets in the way of it. And what's interesting, there's ways to cool your body down. That's why they say a hot shower before going to bed works, because you're hot, then it brings your temperature down when you come out. So that's something that is very easily done. And also what I learned, which is very interesting, is we thermo evacuate heat through our hands and feet, which is why a lot of us through the night, we take our feet out, our hands out, because we're too hot. The body evacuates the heat through hands and feet. So that's very interesting. The other thing is the darkness in the room is very important, and blue light does get in the way of sleep. So very important to, if you can switch the lights in your house to light bulbs that are amber color or red color, very easily found now everywhere. Just think sunset at night, which is really helps to stimulate melatonin, which we need to have good sleep. What I found that was very interesting, what I learned, is that our brain is under stress when we are awake, and it repairs and rejuvenates and heals when we're asleep. So that means that when we used to say, I'll sleep when I'm dead because I need to put in as many hours out as possible, you're going to die too soon, or much sooner if you're doing that. Because we need to have our brain at night repair. Actually, at night, our brain loses its dead cells. And so we have to make sure that we sleep long enough. It's like a washing machine cycle to make sure that the brain does its cycle. It has a cycle that during the night, our brain downloads and save our memory, what we learned during the day. It sheds the dead cells and repair and rejuvenate. So this is very, very important for us. And if we don't have that, it doesn't matter if you eat very healthy, if you exercise, if you take your supplements, lack of sleep will kill you. Lack of sleep will depress your immunity big time.
And isn't it true that and part of the light situation is when there's light coming into your eyes, it stimulates cortisol, right? And that keeps you awake, and that also keeps you fat, is my understanding as well, right?
Very good comments. That's very true. What you do is, in the morning, what wakes us up is our blood pressure that rises, and so is the body temperature. So it's the opposite as night. And then our cortisol level comes up in the morning, and it should be rising through the day as we're catabolic, which means we needed to move, to be active. And at night, it's the opposite. It should go down, the cortisol level, and then the lights come down, and we have sunset so that we become anabolic during the night, which means we're into repair, rejuvenate, and so on. We take light through the eyes in the morning to activate, first of all, for the pineal gland to be reset. So that's our happy gland. And we also reset our melatonin through the eyes, which means that as much as possible, wherever you live, if you miss the sunrise, you need to take sun through the eyes to reset your pineal gland for mood, and also to reset your melatonin so that you can sleep at night. It takes 12 hours of sunlight through the eyes to reset our melatonin. So it's very, very important to understand that we absorb vitamin D through the skin, and we reset melatonin and pineal gland through the eyes. So lose the sunglasses before 10. Very important.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, is that definitely in the mornings when you're walking outside, don't have sunglasses, because you need that. You need the sunlight coming into those eyes.
I see people walking with the sunglasses as early as 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. If you want to do a big hack, big game changer, no sunglasses before 10 or 11, unless you're on the water or on the snow. Also, as far as that's concerned, we improve our eyesight. If the less we use our sunglasses, the more our eyes are used to the sun, the better our vision is going to be.
And the other thing about this is, a lot of us, we're probably all three of us are guilty of this. We're laying in bed and we have our phone in our face, and so that light is coming in, or a computer. And a lot of people are doing that very late at night, or they're watching a movie in their room or whatever, and that's that light coming in. And you can actually buy these blue blocker things that go over your glasses, or you wear glasses. And I wear those, and it seems to help a lot. I mean, it doesn't look very sexy, I got to be honest. But
there are now some for self-conscious people, there are now some sexy ones, Korey. But a comment that you made earlier, and it is true, is that as soon as we turn the electronics on at night, it tells our brain that it's daylight again and we should be awake, and that's why we have a hard time to sleep. There's one more hack that you can do on your phone if you don't have blue light blocker sunglasses, is under display. If you have an iPhone now, you can actually change. What I have my clients do is you set the timer for 5 p.m. and start again at 7 a.m. and there's going to be an amber light change, so that at 5 p.m. your screen goes from blue to amber.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the night mode.
Yeah. Very, very simple.
Night. What time do you set it for, Isabelle? Because I gotta do my setting right now.
It's called night shift, 5 p.m.
Okay.
And then I started again at 7 a.m. so that it's a no-brainer. And you're going to notice, and I always put it at the darkest amber.
Great.
It works.
Wow.
Yes, it does. Yes. So that's a little, and if you have kids at home and they have iPads or so on, make sure that you do that change for them. If you allow them to be on their screen past 5, you're going to help them as far as blocking that blue light at night.
Wow, that's excellent. Well, we are listening to Isabelle Gagnon, who is telling us all things immunity, how we can boost our immunity in this unprecedented time. Great information. You're listening to us on 96.3 FM Cabomil, or you're following us live on Facebook at Cabomil News. So, Isabelle, what else do you have to tell us? We got some good time left. What else can we do for our immunity? We got sleep, we got vitamin D, we got some other supplements that we've talked about. What else can we do?
Well, we need to get back to the basics of eating. I think that if we reflect on the year and a half that has passed, that has been very challenging for us, what it's taught us is we're in control of our own immunity. We need to take responsibility of it. And there's nothing out there, doesn't matter what you believe, that is going to protect you like having strong immunity. And it starts with food. Food first. Eat the colors of the rainbow. Very, very, very important to make sure that, and I think that I mentioned that the last time, I think that I gave the form, Claudia, for following. Very, very important, because different colors have different nutrients. So eat local as much as possible, fresh, and make your own combination. The least processed, the better. Make your own combination. So if you can buy less things that are in box and cans and bags that are pre-made, is best. And so that's, you're going to avoid a lot of artificial flavors and sugar. We need to get off the sugar as much as possible as well. And then gluten is another issue. So really get back to sound nutrition and lose the diet. Diets don't work. And if anybody out there, has been told you need to do keto and so on, these are good basic concepts that do have some merit. But with the advancement of functional medicine, we are all very unique. We have our own DNA is very unique in the world. So you have to trust your own self. You can use a basic diet and amend it to make sure that it works for you. So nutrition now and your own food, food behavior is extremely personal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because a lot of people that follow this program know that I just came off Ramadan. That was 30 days of not eating from sunrise to sunset.
Yes.
But that wasn't what was the most powerful part for me. It was I eliminated sugar for the whole month. I eliminated alcohol. And it's amazing the change that happened in my body. It's amazing. I mean, just my fat ring that I had around my stomach has gone away. And my understanding is also the fat that was inside my organs has gone down. And that was fascinating to know because I can feel it. I feel a difference.
That's called visceral fat. We have 3 types of fat. The visceral fat is the most dangerous. It's called the white fat. It's the fat that is around the organs, your liver and your kidney. So we have a tendency when we lose weight to think that the subcutaneous fat, which is the one that we see the outside fat, we think once we've lost that, we're done. No, most of us have too much visceral fat. And that's inflammation. That's basically the source of all of our diseases. So we want to make sure, and actually fasting and intermittent fasting, which is an easier way to do, really helps to decrease that visceral fat. The third fat is brown fat, which is within our muscles. Yeah. So ideally, we need to lose visceral fat and gain more brown fat, which is your muscle fat.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with when we're eating. It's pretty simple. I mean, if we eliminate sugar, but there's also different types of sugar, isn't that right, Isabelle? I mean, there's sugar that comes from you eating bread or rice.
Yes.
Also, correct? When it's a lot of carbohydrates. And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Well, it all has a different, what we call glycemic index. So gluten and bread is also a form of sugar. But the sugar is sugar for the body. For the glucose and for the body fat, sugar is sugar, honey. What does that mean? Even that's one of my favorite lines. Even like, people always say, okay, but I started to have monk fruit sugar instead, Isabelle, or honey or dates. What do you think? Yes, these are better forms of sugar. They're substitute that we need to favor in moderation. But if you're trying to lose body fat, or if you try to balance your glucose, a lot of people have glucose issues. Sugar is going to still spike your glucose, or you're going to have a hard time to lose weight if you're eating too much monk fruit sugar or honey. So again, it's really about going to the better sugar in very, very, very moderation. And the last part that I want to talk about is very important, that impacts our immunity, is breathing. Breathing it's at the top of everything, so much so that Dr. Wild, everybody knows Dr. Wild, he was on the Helen show lately. This was on his Twitter, showing people how to do the 4-7-8 breath. He was using Helen as an example, because what has become even worse now is because of the mask. Most of us have lost our ability to diaphragm breathing. We should be breathing by the belly up, not from the neck or from the chest like most of us do. Shallow breathing. So really, For me now, breathing is at the top of my wellness prescription for everyone because it's vital. We need oxygen in our blood and our organs and our brain for vitality, for energy. So before we eat, take 2-3 good small, deep breaths to switch from the sympathetic fight and flight that we're on most of the time to the rest and digest side. The only way to do the switch from one side to the other is by belly breathing, where the vagus nerve is. That's the switch that helps us switch from over. So breathing at the top of immunity right now, we need to start consciously every day to do breathing exercise.
Is there any apps you recommend or anything you can recommend people follow to learn more about breathing, Isabelle?
There's so many beautiful apps, like Breathe is one of them. Yeah, that a lot of people like. I like Insight Timer. Personally, I'm a big fan of Insight Timer because it has everything. You can have yoga, you can have guided meditation, you can have music to fall asleep. And there's a lot of also breathing exercise, guided breathing exercise. It's worth the 150 pesos a month. I think it's like $10 a month. These are apps that I like. I like free apps. I believe in free apps. But if I'm going to choose, I only have 2 apps that I pay for, and they're both meditation and breathing and mantra, because for me this is vital.
Yeah, no, that's great. Another person that I've followed and actually done is Wim Hof, and so the Wim Hof breathing technique. He also brings in the cold plunges and some of that, which is very good for immune system as well. And so we can talk about that. Maybe we'll try to get Wim Hof on the show. What do you think, Claudia?
That'd be awesome.
That would be super.
We'll work. Awesome. I do know someone in Phoenix that is a Wim Hof certified person. Maybe we can actually get him on. Yeah. But it'd be something good to talk about.
And
well, we have about
become such a big trend. The Wim Hof.
Absolutely,
it's so kind of funny in a way that it's breathing. It's something that we do all the time, every day, every night. Then we need it to live, and we're not aware of how important it is to breathe well.
Exactly, and
we just don't think about it.
And he's got and Wim Hof has an app as well that is free. You can pay for upgrades, but there's a Wim Hof app, and he teaches you how to breathe for free. He's got a free course you can take. And then if you want to upgrade and take more courses, I highly recommend it. It's a very good way to get started in the breathing realm. But listen, we're gonna have to take a break, and we'll have a little bit more conversation during the break, and we will be right back. Stay with us. Okay.
Wow. Actually, Claudia, free and like breathing is free. We always think of how can we hack our immunity? What can we do? And a lot of people have issues with money right now. So there's some very easy things that we can do that don't cost much.
Right. I mean, just some of the most basic pranayama exercises are so effective. And it really changes the way that you react to things. If every time when you notice that you're starting to raise your voice or that your pulse starts to get raised, if you just take 3 deep, like really deep from the diaphragm breaths, it's crazy. It just deactivates everything that was about to happen within you. And then you don't react. And then when you don't react, people look at you and they don't know how to react because you're not freaking out. And that's amazing.
Actually, the 4-7-8 breath is known for that. That's why you hear a lot about this, which means you inspire for 7 and you hold and through the nose, and you hold for 7 and you exhale for 8. And the hold is what brings your heart rate down, and you can feel it. It will bring your heart rate and your blood pressure down. Like 3 breaths will do that.
Wow.
Hey guys, I have to apologize. I have to run. So can we close up the?
Let's close it. We only have 2 minutes, so we have.
All
2
right.
minutes
I'll
to
say
say
I'll say quickly. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
And back in 3, 2.
Welcome back to Cabomil News and Community Update in English with Korey Riggs and Claudia Velo. Isabelle, we want to thank you for being on the show today. Incredible information about our immune systems, but we can't wait to have you back next month.
Yes. Thank you. I look forward to it.
Wonderful.
Claudia, do you want to give us a resumen of what happened in Spanish?
El día de hoy tuvimos la presencia de Isabelle Gagnon, experta en medicina funcional, y estuvimos hablando acerca de cómo fortalecer nuestro sistema inmune.
Well, it'll be an interesting week. Every week has been interesting over the last, several months. So we look forward to seeing you next Sunday for Cabomil News and Community Update in English at 6 p.m. Or you can always follow us on at Cabomil News on Facebook to see all of our shows. Claudia, once again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And,
Happy birthday.
And we'll look forward to seeing you soon to celebrate with the tequila.
No tequila,
which is
we'll celebrate.
very good for your immune system, tequila and mezcal.
For the gut.
I'll have the mezcal. No tequila.
All right. Everyone have a great week. Stay safe out there.
Catch you next time. Bye.
Yes.